Hi, and welcome to the third episode of Beating with the Facts. My name is Sonakshi Fukan, and my mission is to spread awareness about how lifestyle, habits, and diet can affect our cardiovascular system in both good and bad ways. Today, I'm talking to Dr. Ahad, a family practice physician in Troy, Michigan. Hello, Dr. Ahad.
Hi, dear. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Well, basically, I'm a family practitioner. I'm a solo practitioner. Me and my nurse practitioner run the clinic on 15 and Coolidge. We've been there for about 12 years. Um, just a typical primary care physician, medical condition, primary care, hypertension. Cardiovascular disease is a big concern for us, and most of our daily, visits are geared towards prevention
Mhm.
of cardiovascular disease. Because, as you know, if we help people get healthy, like what you're trying to do here, chances are they won't need the cardiologist and the neurologist and
Mhm.
that's why lifestyle modification that you're talking about are very important.
All right, thank you. So let's get started. So, yeah, based on what you were talking about, and I also did some research, family physicians like you guys treat acute illnesses and, like you said, hypertension. So, when a person thinks of high blood pressure or hypertension, they think of like an old, stressed man or woman. But what's the youngest age for someone to get hypertension? Is it like genetic? Can it be poor choice? Like,
Good question. So, first of all, let's define hypertension. Hypertension is a persistent elevation of the blood pressure, whether systolic, the top number, or the diastolic, more than 140 or more than 90. So, either one of these two numbers, if it's persistently elevated, more than 140 or more than 90, we consider this a hypertension stage 2, which requires treatment. It really it's a disease of, comes with age as an essential hypertension. 90% of it has no reason, just basically it comes with age. 10% there is some reason, and this is not the common one. It can happen at young people. I have like people in their 30s, people in their actually 20s with hypertension. But usually, we diagnose a patient with hypertension under the age of 40, we do a little bit checkup to make sure there is nothing of the secondary causes. We call it like not essential hypertension. There's some reason behind it. We at least rule it out. So it's very important to treat hypertension. It's one of the things that really there's no controversy about hypertension. Everybody knows elevated blood pressure can lead to cardiovascular disease, whether that be heart, cerebral, be brain, lower extremity, and others. Kidney disease is a big one. In fact, the second most common reason for kidney failure in adult outside the United States is hypertension. Actually, in the United States is the second most. Well, in the world is the first. Diabetes is the most common in the United States. So it's very important in that end-stage renal disease and dialysis. It's basically hypertension.
yeah. And also, can you like explain scientifically or medically why and how like stress affects our blood vessels, heartbeat, brain function, etc.?
Okay. So, although stress is an important etiology in driving the blood pressure high, I don't want people to think that stress is hypertension. Hypertension can happen in people who are not stressed. So, hypertension we think it's mostly because of cardiovascular blood vessel hardening due to accumulation of cholesterol and lose of elasticity, and then there is no expansion of the blood pressure. So, when your heart pushes the blood, the the surface does not expand, so the blood pressure is the force on the surface, so the blood pressure would be high, and then at the smaller vessels is going to get to end organ damage, we say. But stress, to answer your question, can lead to increased adrenaline. Adrenaline is a stress hormone. When you're in a fight flight mode, your blood pressure would rise to help vascularize and give the blood to all the organs so that you would be ready to run from a danger. But chronic stress can elevate your blood pressure. Now, chronic stress is not necessarily just basically because a person have a bad job, or stress about finances, or all important, but it could happen because they're not sleeping well because of apnea. So if people can't breathe, apnea is not able to breathe or blocking the breathing, that leads to stress, and stress can raise the adrenaline. So the way that stress acts is basically increasing your adrenaline. Now, this is geared, our bodies are equipped with this mechanism to help us deal with the stress in an acute issue. Now, if it's chronic, it's going to lead to problems and it's not going to be helpful to us. So that's basically to answer your question about stress.
Hmm. And relating to stress, from our previous episode with Dr. Sundaram, I learned about stress fractures, which are basically fractures that happen from stress. So, like stress fractures and stuff like that, are there other irregular or, unusual diseases or injuries that happen from stress?
Okay, so stress fracture is when we talk and say stress, we're talking about mostly there's two types of stress, a psychological stress and a physical stress. If you keep beating on the same organ repetitively, like running marathons day after day after day, and you don't give your organ a break, it will wear off just like anything else. Like if you keep beating on that computer day and night, day and night, day and night, iPad, it's gonna break, right?
Mhm. And since we were talking about actual stress, like physical stress on bodies, a lot of people, exercise a lot. They don't take recovery days or they take extreme diets from like trends out there. So what's your least favorite diet trend, like keto, clean eating, or girl dinner?
It's I think when it comes to diet, I'm not a big fan of a intermittent fasting. Just because it puts stress on your body. When you're hungry, you're in a stress, right? You're hungry. That's an obnoxious feeling. I don't like to feel it. I don't like my patients to feel it. So what I advise when it comes to diet is eat 3 meals because that's how our body physiologically is geared, and or address your hunger. Now, you do not need to indulge in certain food if your goal is to, it depends on your goal. If your problem is weight, and that's leading to most of the issues, and I told you up front that the weight is a problem in the United States, and you want to lower your weight, it's not going to come by not eating. That is basically starvation. You're going to lose weight for sure. If I lock somebody in and just give them water, they're going to survive for 30 days, as long as there is water in there, but they're going to be very stressed. And that's not healthy. That's going to lead to destruction of certain organs and damage. But if you eat and you make your food low in calorie, very simply by cutting the caloric or high caloric food, like carbohydrates, for example, rice, noodles, and bread, which is made with the flour, and then a certain vegetables, like for example, potatoes, that is very high in calories. If you cut those out, or basically carbohydrates in general, and you focus on more, protein source of food, which is very low in calories, 4 calories compared to 9 for carbohydrates per unit.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. Yeah, so if weight is a problem, let's say for a teenager or a child, but they still need the nutrients to grow, like a well-balanced diet, would they just have to reduce the amount of carbs, or would they also have to cut all the carbs out?
Very good question. Very good question. It depends on how big the problem is. So we in an adult we define obesity by BMI, which is sometimes a little bit misleading, and I'll explain to you why. But in children, we define it by percentage of BMI. So if they're in a category that we call it an morbid obese or obese, at that point we have to cut the carbs down, and we have to actually encourage other aspect of weight loss, not just basically carbs cutting, which is very important. But if they're just a little bit on the overweight spectrum, maybe modifying the diet might be very helpful. And if you have a weight problem, it means that the amount of food that you're consuming is more than what you need to spend. So you're storing it, right? So if you're concerned about nutrients, you could always supplement. So when we advise fruits, vegetables, all your fruits and vegetables are full of vitamins, nutrients, water. And then when we recommend, protein, there's a plenty of calories in the protein, but it's just not to the point that you overflow and you need to store it. That leads us to how to balance the consumption with what you're spending. So if you just eat and not spend, it's going to be stored, even if you eat a little bit. So you have to consume that energy. And how do you consume it? By moving. So it's not about exercising for 10, 15 minutes on the treadmill and done. No, actually, most of the calorie loss is by walking, being physically active, getting 10,000 steps plus per day. And that's how you consume calories. So that's why people in the good old days, when they worked jobs at cutting lumber, they didn't get fat. Why? Because they consumed numerous, a lot of calories with these activities. And that's why we had a bit of a balance. But now most of our jobs are we're sitting down talking on a desk, and that's why it's more sedentary lifestyle, and that's what we need to change, you know.
Yeah, lifestyle. Okay. And I mean, based on what I know, I think family physicians, and correct me if I'm wrong, what is your age range? Like what's the youngest you treat and the oldest you treat?
It's all variable. We're trained to take care of pregnant women all the way to childbirth. I've actually managed to deliver 40 babies in my training, and I'm trained to take care of infants all the way to the oldest age there is. I have a 101-year-old actually in my practice, and we focus more on adult medicine. I take care of kids from the age of 8 and up, and that's
Okay.
but we're certified to take care of patients from infancy all the way up. In fact, I do practice hospital medicine as well, so I take care of my patients in the hospital as well. And full spectrum.
So since you said that your biggest audience is adults, have you ever treated an adult with a severe drinking or smoking problem? Like what condition did they have in terms of cardiovascular or lung health? And like how did you go on about treating it?
So now we're jumping into a different risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and that's basically smoking. So, like my good old mentor said, numerate to me. He asked me while I was in training, give me the risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Pick one. Which one would you pick to treat? I said diabetes. No. Blood pressure. No. Cholesterol. No. He said if you have to pick one to modify this patient's life, it would be smoking. If he quits smoking, the odds are of him having the next event would be less. That's how important. And smoking meaning nicotine use. So vaping is proven. People say, oh, vape is okay. No, it is proven that vape raises the risk of cardiovascular disease, doubles it. Okay. Same with if you use chewable tobacco. Even if you continuously use nicotine product, not just to have quitting period, if you continue to use a gum or a lozenge or a patch for years, it's the same risk. You're using nicotine. Nicotine raises your risk of having cardiovascular disease. That's not only heart attack, only other issues is vascular disease of the lower extremity and vascular disease of the carotid and also cerebral vascular disease, meaning vascular dementia as well. So all of these are important in nicotine. So I try to encourage people who have cholesterol problem and their doctors have offered them cholesterol lowering medication and they're hesitant. For some reason, this one category of disease, people are bad mouthing cholesterol medicine for no reason. It's been there for over 50 years. The first agent was in the 80s. This is one thing that I can tell you with strength. It's a very, very strong statement that there is evidence A behind cholesterol lowering medication. Side effects, happens. We can switch to something else. So cholesterol management is very important. Some of the cholesterol issues are not related really just to weight and lifestyle. It's just related to people have family history of elevated cholesterol. So I have young people as young as your age with elevated cholesterol. That is not uncommon. That's common. But we don't treat it at your age. We treat it when they're older in their fifth decade. And again, we can calculate the risk of cardiovascular disease and determine who qualifies and who does not. Now, we talked about physical activity and that's to lower the weight. But if you want to exercise, one of the most important exercises for cardiovascular health, specifically, not for weight loss, would be cardio. Cardio is a very simple thing. It is not just running on the treadmill, it's a heart rate number. So it's some 220 number minus the patient's age, and that's 100% cardio. We think you don't come with a manual, so we think that's the max. And then if you multiply that by 80%, you will see the range ranging from that number, the lower number, to the higher number. So if you put your hand on the treadmill when you're exercising, you will see that the machine gives you, oh, you are in cardio range. What does that mean? You're between 80% of 220 minus your age and 100%. Okay? And so if you sustain that heart rate for 20 minutes or 30 minutes every day, you'll see your cardiovascular health would improve dramatically. Go ahead and ask.
Yeah, so my audience is obviously talking about like cardiovascular systems and stuff like that. I'm also trying to bring awareness or raise awareness on some trends that are happening on TikTok. So we're gonna get into a little controversial health trend. There's this trend on TikTok called the chroming challenge, which involves inhaling toxic fumes from aerosol or paint cans with the intention of getting high or having a hallucination effect. And there's also another trend called the Benadryl challenge. Here the person overdoses on the medicine to get a hallucination effect.
We got cut off for a second. I heard about the fumes and toxic materials. That you're fine. Honestly, this is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. The last trend that I heard was about young kids trying to eat the pods, the Tide Pods.
Tide Pods, yeah.
That was, I mean, I don't know. I mean, frankly speaking, I don't know where you guys, come up with these ideas, but like you can easily say that this is stupid and I would not do that to my body. But unfortunately, some of them get pressured, get pressured by peers. Frankly speaking, I put the responsibility on the parents in monitoring these apps. For example, I have an 11 years old. She keeps saying, "Oh, get me an iPhone." I'm like, no, you're not. In fact, I limit her screen time dramatically. Let's go play. Let's go play pickleball. Let's play whatever you want. Let's go out. Not phone, because there is data to support harm at your age using these phones. Unfortunately, these data, I sometimes they're suppressed because if an app, they won't say, okay, it's bad for you, right? Because they're going to lose their business, right? But they're studying it. For example, in Australia, there is a law that prohibits 15 and under from using phones in school. I mean, this is well known. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows that this is bad for you. Limit the screen times to 2 hours a day. That includes TV, interviews, and all of that. It's not good for your eyes, not good for your brain, especially with these apps. You get wired one after, and then depletes all your dopamine. And when you get depleted, you say when you leave the phone, you're upset, you're angry, you're bitter, you can't talk, you're short with your parents, you're short with your friends. It's not good. It's not good. And it's very important to be aware of the dangers of phone. So I would say, instead of saying the trends on TikTok, let's say, why are we watching TikTok? Because kids your age have phones. And we're not supposed to. You don't need phone. If you're not driving, why do you need phone 24/7? Why do you need to be wired 24/7? Relax, enjoy life. There's much more than videos,
Yeah. So to wrap it up, so thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Ahad, and thank you so much, all of you guys, for watching my podcast. And see you in the next episode. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.